Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me, your host, Tommy Gilberts, as we sit down and take a behind-the-scenes look into Titan athletics with weekly interviews with coaches and athletes. This is Titan Tabletop. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome inside the Ames Library podcast studio for week 17 of Titan Table Talk, filming here in the last couple days of January. We'll be joined in just a moment by Nick Roper and Trey Bazzell from men's basketball, followed by Maya Smith from women's basketball, and Henry Moore and Lauren Feddersen from swimming and diving. Nick and Trey, welcome for the first time this year. Good to have you guys here. How we doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Yep, doing well.
So I want to talk to you guys a little bit first about the game back on Wednesday. I obviously had a great week at the Shirk Center, 2 home games, 2 victories, 2 nice crowds, and 2 pretty exciting CCW matchups as we kind of start the second trip through conference play here. One of those tricky things you can get when you start this second time through the CCIW is what we just had last week, which is seeing a relatively tough team twice in the span of a week. Went up to Wheaton, had the 1-point victory a week and a half ago, and then 73-64 victory at the Shirk Center last Wednesday, but one that didn't necessarily come as easily as a 9-point margin would suggest. It kind of felt like the Thunder were knocking down every 3-ball they could possibly find in about the first 7 minutes, bouncing them off the front of the rim, the back of the rim, 5 feet up in the air and through the basket, and faced a little bit of a deficit early on, 26-13. What was the kind of the mindset of, okay, we're getting a little lucky perhaps on the bad side of things, and we can turn this around? What's the mindset on the bench when you're facing that early deficit?
It's just staying composed, knowing we're never out of a game. I mean, they hit some tough shots. Teams have kind of hit tough shots against us all year, which if the team wants to beat us, we're going to have to hit tough shots because we play really tough defense, don't give up very many easies. So when you just stick to the game plan, keep making them work for everything, and we would eventually get back in it, and then we got back in and ended up getting out to a pretty comfortable lead and ended up winning by 9, so it worked out for us.
Yeah, our biggest focus going into the game was limiting their three-point attempts. Obviously, in the first game, they made a staggering 17 threes, and so we just tried to limit their attempts, limit their makes as much as possible. They were really hot early, and I think, especially after halftime, we did a better job limiting those attempts.
Yeah, and even kind of in that second portion of the first half, got back within a few, and then I think Wheaton maybe scored the last 5 or so before halftime to take an 8-point lead into the half. But, if you think back to the first month of the season where it felt like there were a lot of games where we were playing really, tight ball games in the first half and then beating people by 15 or 20 after halftime, this was a little bit of a throwback to those days. It was a 46-29 second half, as you said, and ended up getting out to, what felt like a much more comfortable lead going into the last 10 minutes of the ball game. 16 points for Harrison there, third double-double of the season for you, 11 points and 10 rebounds. We've seen that so often this year that it feels like we've been a better second half team so many times in the first half. And especially when you're looking at early in the season, I think one of the things that Ron and Andy would have attributed that to is just the depth of the rotation and having a lot fresher legs on defense in the second half. Are there any other particular halftime adjustments that you guys see yourselves and your coaches being able to make frequently and consistently that have helped maintain that second half studliness, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, there's obviously different adjustments that the coaches make for each game at halftime. I don't remember the specific adjustments for that game, but the coaches do a great job kind of leading us and helping us out at halftime.
Yeah, I think it just goes to where we have really smart players too, where we really kind of evaluate what went wrong there in the first half. We're able to find out, where they're getting their points, what we're doing. Then we just really kind of lock in the second half. But I think we do a really good job of keeping our poise and not panicking. Like we got to stick to our game, and I think we do a really good job of that. And then, we gave them a lot of threes in the first half. So that was probably the biggest adjustment. Was just like we knew they were going to take them, and then I don't know if we just got a little surprised by it, but then came out in the second half, just played much better defense on limiting their attempts, because you can't always control if you're going to make them or not, but you can control if they shoot them.
Yeah, especially not with a couple of the bounces that they got there towards the beginning of the game, that's for sure. And then Saturday evening, another close one against a longtime conference rival in a little bit of a similar way as Wheaton, having a little bit of a down season in the CCIW this year as Augustana, but still an opponent you have to take very seriously, certainly coming in to the Shirk Center. 64-60 win. Nick led all scorers with 20. One of the things that really stood out to me, and I did manage to make it home for that game and watch on the live stream. I didn't go for hours, 14, 15, and 16 at the Shirk Center that day, but was able to catch at least a lot of it, was a second chance points in offensive rebounding and winning the battles on the glass. It was 17-1 in second chance points in particular, 13 offensive rebounds. Trey, you had the early three, got the Titans out to a 5-point lead, but Augustana's defense really kept them in it in the first half of that game. The 2-point lead at halftime, 27-25, and then saw it get extended to 10 points for the Titans in the early second half. But Augustana fought right back within 2 in the final minute, and then Hakeem was able to sink a couple of free throws at the end, fortunately, and put that one away. But when you're facing a battle like that against a team that you know really is coming in with nothing to lose at that point, what was your focus going into that ball game, matching up against them for the second time in 3 weeks?
Yeah, they kind of had a little bit different game plan. They went pretty much 95% zone first time we played, and they played a lot more man. I know that ended up giving us a little bit of fits, them going back and forth between defenses. So I think we did a great job of kind of handling that. Like if they were in man, we need to get into our man offense, zone offense. So I think we did a great job of that. But we also missed a lot of shots that we usually make in that game. And you're going to have games like that, so it's really important on the, like you mentioned, with the offensive rebounding. Those are just huge in games like that. You got to get the dirty work plays. It doesn't always look pretty, but you just got to find a way to win. And then being 10-1 in the conference, and like you said, playing two teams that are historically really good but are struggling a little bit this year. They still have a lot of pride in their program, and they come in, they're going to want to beat you, especially when you're first, got the target on your back. So we know we're going to get every team's best shot. So I think we've done a really good job of kind of owning up to that and kind of like accepting that and like finding ways to win even when you don't shoot the ball well or don't execute quite as well as you want.
Yeah, they had a really unusual defense where they would play, I think it was around 60% zone, 40% man. Some possessions, the first 10 seconds, they're in zone and they would switch to man. So it was really tough for us to get in offensive flow that game. But we, as we have been all season, relied on our suffocating defense just to be able to lock people down and limit their points.
Yeah, if you're having a tough shooting day, and the reality is if you hold the other team to 60,
yeah,
going to go your way still more often than not.
Yeah.
So certainly. So Nick, I want to talk to you a little bit about this season, which has been so much different really from your first two here at Illinois Wesleyan. Obviously that the first season playing in more of a backup coming off the bench role, average 9 minutes a game. Last year after the first 5-6 games, missed the whole year. And now suddenly, we're in a position where you're playing 27 minutes a game, being relied on as a team leader, both on the offensive and defensive end. And first of all, has the injury responded pretty well to that? Have we been okay health-wise on the floor of the season? You're feeling pretty good?
Yeah, it took a while. The beginning of the season, I was probably around 80% healthy. But once we started conference play, I was feeling pretty close back to my normal self.
Mm-hmm. Has there been anything you've noticed that you have to do extra recovery-wise between games, playing the difficult Wednesday, Saturday CCIW schedule now that we're out there for 25, 30 minutes at a time?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of recovery time with Rachel, our trainer. A lot of more stretching that needs to be done. I feel tighter after games than I have in previous seasons.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm just trying to do whatever my body tells me to keep me healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Trey, one of the things that it's very easy to see when you look out at this Titan team, perhaps even more so than many times in the last decade, is that size-wise, our roster presents matchup problems for a lot of people. But at the same time, you can't just count on trying to get the ball inside all the time against some tough defensive teams in what's a very physical league and is officiated as a very physical league. You need some guys who can stretch the floor at the same time, which oftentimes is your role more than anything else as an outside shooter. One of the tricky things, of course, when you're trying to play that role is that you're going to go through really hot stretches, really cold stretches. You did a great job kind of carrying the Titan offense in those first few games back after break, dropped the 3 games over break to some tough teams, and then came back and shot, 8 for 13 from 3 in those first 3 games coming back from winter break, 8, 15, and 8 points as you got back into conference play. And how does a stretch like that really kind of like set up your confidence going forward, make you feel like, okay, I can really stretch the floor, get some guys out to guard me, and make sure that guys like Nick are open down low?
Yeah. Being a shooter isn't always the toughest mental thing. Sometimes you're going to go through bad stretches. Start of the year, I wasn't shooting great. Like last year, I think I shot over 40%, so I'm not quite at those numbers right now, but, put myself in a little bit of a hole. But the big thing about being a shooter is just having a short memory. If you miss one, don't let it bother you. You just got to keep shooting. You don't got to chuck up bad shots, but it's just having that confidence that every time you shoot it, it's going to go in, just kind of really feel well about your shot. And just coming back from break, felt really good to get a couple games in a row where I was shooting well. I really think it can help the team, not just when I'm making shots, but if you're shooting well at the time, teams are really going to focus on you and you're out there on the floor. So not acting like a decoy, but to run actions and kind of get a little bit more attention. It can give someone like Nick, who doesn't need much of an advantage, and get him half a step off a guy if someone has to help me a little bit like that. And then, like you said, we're a huge team, so especially being from a small school, I'm not that used to playing with a bunch of big guys, so it's been a little bit different, but it's a great luxury to have. And they do a great job of finding me too, seeing over the top, seeing double teams and stuff like that. So it's been good to see them going in, and we do have a bunch of guys that can shoot the ball well. Last couple games we haven't shot it as well, but we know that we got a lot of guys that can get hot, and if we get hot now at the right time of the year, it can be really dangerous because we can have a really great inside-out game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about this time of year, and it's hard to believe we're already staring down the last couple weeks of regular season CCIW play. This coming Wednesday, heading down to Decatur to face off with Milliken, and then Saturday we've got the bye day, so to speak, nothing Saturday, and then closing out with Elmhurst, Carthage, North Park, and North Central. Pretty much for the 5 teams who are sitting right behind us at this point in the CCW standings. You talk a little bit about sitting right now at 10-1 in conference play, Carthage at 8-2, Elmhurst at 8-3. A little weird to look at the CCW standings and see 3 out of 9 teams over 500 right now, and that's it, because you've kind of got that cluster at 5-6, 4-6 right there. But when you're a game and a half up right now, you're going to get everybody's best shot. Really important just to be able to take it one game at a time and focus on the next opponent. And what are kind of, without giving too much away, how are you guys preparing for Milliken on Wednesday?
Obviously, being number 1 in the conference, every team looks forward to when we come to town. They have a lot of quick guards, a lot of capable shooters. We're just going to need to trust our defense, get the ball inside. And that will help us.
Yeah, I think defense is a huge part because, they do have a lot of really talented scorers, and I think we just made every play tough for them when we played here. And then by the end of the game, they just, they're worn down, beat up. So I think it's just going to be, sticking to that nasty defense that we have, making them really work for everything, especially on the road. Guys can get hot on their home courts, and it's just going to be about limiting them to, limit their top scorers to make them not efficient. If they're going to score 20, it needs to be off 20 shots or something like that. So I think it's just sticking to our game plan, sticking to one game at a time, not getting ahead of ourselves, and just keep this thing going.
Yeah, 100%. Right out of the coach's mouth right there, I would say. So speaking of your coaches and your coaching staff, we need an official estimate, and this is on record, both video and audio from you, of how many bags of chips and how many bottles of Mountain Dew Andy Etheridge consumes on a weekly basis.
Weekly basis.
This is going to be an in-season estimate, which I know that's going to be higher.
In-season estimate helps that we're sitting good in the conference this year. Last year was probably pretty high. Bag of chips, I feel like he probably has at least one at lunch, one at dinner, so there's 2 for sure a day. Probably sneaks in another one, maybe 2 at lunch or at snacks, so I'll say 3. I'll say about 20 bags of chips a week.
Okay.
And probably about 25 bottles of Mountain Dew a week is my guess.
My numbers are a little bit lower. I feel like his stress levels are lower, so he doesn't need as much. I'm going to go 25 total a week.
Between Mountain Dew and chips combined?
Both.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree. Hedging the bets a little bit. Now you're going to keep them together
one of
and
us
give
is gonna be
yourself
right.
some margin for error there, that's for sure. All right. We're going to check those with him next time. But for now, guys, good luck this week at Milliken. If you want to catch the Titans, they'll be on the live stream link on the IW Sports page, 7 p.m. tip-off at the Griswold Center on Wednesday, and the men are off again on this coming Saturday before resuming CCW play with Elmhurst on February 7th. Good luck, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with Titan women's basketball head coach Maya Smith.
They say inside every challenge is an opportunity. At Illinois Wesleyan, you have the power to seize that opportunity. Discover the tools, the mentors, and the experiences to take on any challenge and shape not just who you are, but who you will become. The best college in Illinois for jobs is right here. Tap or click now to start your free application and break through at Illinois Wesleyan University.
And welcome back. Our second distinguished guest of the day is Titan women's basketball head coach Maya Smith. Maya, welcome. Good to see you again.
Hey, Tommy. Thank you for having me. Always good to be here.
Always exciting, because I don't run into you often enough every day around Shirk, but when we get to come in and have a real conversation for our many Titan fans out there, wanted to recap our last week of play as usual, coming off what was clearly the toughest stretch of the CCW season with the Milliken games. A little bit of really one tough quarter down at Milliken last Wednesday. Faced a 1-point deficit at the half and then outscored 34-16 in the third. Couple of nice games from Ava Bardick, 18, Lauren Huber, 14, continuing to get a little bit healthier every day. That really, the story of the day was some cold shooting and then a big run by the Big Blue in the third quarter. How'd you feel about the team coming out of that ball game, going in a really tough environment?
I thought being down at Milliken, I thought it's always a game of runs. Whenever you play Milliken, whenever you play Carroll, it's a game of runs. And our runs in the first quarter were good. Our runs in the second quarter, I thought, were good. And then I don't want to get in any NCAA trouble, but the ghost foul on the 3-point shot from half court that allowed us to be up 2 to going down 1. I thought that was a real momentum changer. We tried to talk about it and not let that happen in the locker room at Milliken. But when we came out from the third quarter, you could tell that we were just deflated a little bit, which is unlike my girls. They typically can move on and bounce back from most difficult things. But that one, I think, was almost just lay down on the ground and have somebody stomp on you. So I think that really affected us a little bit. We did not play a good third quarter. Elise Knutson was outstanding for Milliken. Shows, why she's the reigning player of the year in the CCIW and one of the best D3 players for sure in women's basketball. But, it was a rough stretch. Everybody said that's unfortunate that you had to play those 3 games back to back to back. But, those games are going to fall on your schedule anyway. You're going to have to play them. I was just really happy that we got the game with Carroll, and now between the 3 of us, Milliken has, beaten us twice. We've beaten Carroll twice, and Carroll's beaten Milliken twice. So what are you going to do about that? You just hope now that we control our own destiny, stay in the driver's seat, and that, good things happen to us at the end of the season.
Absolutely, and that's in a way you look at that 3-game stretch, and it's very reminiscent of what you hope to see in the NCAA tournament and CCW postseason play, where you're going to have to turn around in a couple days and face teams that are going to really give you a battle. Yeah. Perhaps teams you don't know as well as Milliken or Carroll. So there's a little bit of difference that goes into preparing for that. But yeah, when you look at that top portion of the conference this year, with as you said, Carroll beat Milliken twice by 3 and 5. We beat Carroll by 6 and 4. Obviously, 17-point loss at Milliken the other day, but then the 2-point loss at home, 5 out of 6 games between those 3 teams coming down to 6 points or less.
Yeah, again, like you mentioned, the game at Milliken wasn't characteristic of us, and I thought Milliken played an outstanding second half for sure. So, again, it was a tough stretch, but you got to play them. And the thing about it was, I don't know if anybody knew, but like on Monday when we had classes canceled, so we did not get to prepare on Monday. I don't know if Milliken did or did not, but I know that hurt us, losing that one day of prep a little bit. Even though we know exactly who they are, it's still a good thing to be able to go over it twice versus one time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was moments after we were filming this with Brian, who was in here last week, that I was parked right out on the street over there and was trying to walk down the 2-foot grassy embankment to my car and did not make it down without lying in the snow. At that point, I'm wondering, how much longer are we going to have class today? Got back to Shirk and found out it was canceled.
Sounds like you and Brian had the same episode.
I think
Brian
we may have.
landed on his tushy, too.
Yeah, he was trying to get himself a ride back, and I'm not sure he made it to the car in one piece, but as long as he made it to the Milliken game, that's what counts. And then Saturday, once some of the ice had dissipated, we were actually able to get a nice crowd back into the Shirk Center. Of course, the annual PinkZone game, something that, aside from its significance as a CCW regular season game on a Saturday night, which are always fun at the Shirk Center, obviously holds a great deal of meaning for you. For the 13th year, is that correct?
This
now?
was the 13th, yes.
Post-diagnosis. Can you give us your thoughts on that night and what it means?
Yeah, it's just it's a community service type of event, and that's the way it always has been for most of my career. And then when I was diagnosed back in the summer of 2011, it took on a whole new meaning, became very personal for me. And what's really great about the PinkZone for me is that my girls are all in. Our fans are all in at Illinois Wesleyan. Our Mindy McCluskey, Katie Gonzalez. I mean, they're just so all in. I don't know how else to say it, but you can certainly feel the love and support. And favorite day of the year by far for me is PinkZone Day. I love seeing my girls in their pink uniforms and knowing what it means to more people than just myself. I mean, we have the local, used to be Community Cancer Center. Now it's the Carl Hospital for Cancer. But certainly just it's an emotional day. I'm not going to lie. And this last one was by far the one that I struggled with the most, and it was because of the girls, but in a wonderful way.
Yeah, as Katie and I were going over kind of the pregame plans and what we were going to do when, she's like,
yeah, thanks for the heads up, or lack of.
Who was told it was supposed to be a surprise and that you were going to cry. And it was very clear that both of those were going to happen, but we gotta save some surprises for you once in a while there. Mm-hmm.
It was definitely an emotional day, but emotional in a very happy, blessed way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Especially when you get to share it with a team like you've had this year.
Love my girls.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the basketball portion of Saturday, once we got past those moments, I would say it was not the prettiest first quarter on either side that I've seen, but a really nice bounce back in the second quarter, 31-10 in the second quarter, outscoring the Vikings, and had a fairly comfortable lead for the rest of the way. 18 and 8 rebounds for Lauren, 17 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 steals for Ava. Kate Palmer was 16, 6, and 4 assists, and then another 4-steal game from Sawyer White, in addition to 11 points and 5 dimes. What's become kind of the theme over the last month or so as everybody's gotten healthy, another really balanced attack on offense, and forcing 27 turnovers. That's really, committing 12, forcing 27. That's where Maya Smith is at right there.
It is. That's where I like to be too. That's for sure. I thought, we needed a spark in the first quarter. I don't know if, all the emotions were there or not and affecting the start of the game, but Laura Malum comes in and hits 2 back-to-back long distance threes. And just, you could feel the electricity in the crowd get going and the fire in our team. And that was just such a great part of that ball game, was watching her come in and do that. And that changed the whole course of that ball game, those 2 threes.
It did. You could feel it right there in the arena. I mean, it was a 6-5 game, a little bit of a defensive struggle early on. I don't remember exactly, if it was around the 4 or 5 minute mark, I think. Yes. And then those had to be within about 45 seconds of each other.
They were back to back by her for sure, and in the same back to back possessions.
Yeah, and you immediately see a timeout called to my left over there, and just the whole place is going nuts, and suddenly it's 12-5, and there's an entirely different feel to the first 5 minutes of the game.
So I don't know if people know this, but Laura's dad is going through some cancer as well, so I know that game really had some significance for her as well. So it just feels like it's a plan that she would come in and bang those 2 threes. It was really great.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And
beautiful is a good word to use there.
Yeah,
I like that,
isn't it? There. And what's so much fun too is getting to watch some of the 7 through 15 players on the roster playing time get to actually come in and play some real minutes at the end of the game. Watch the excitement for Emma Kornick scoring on a really nice leaning layup. You got Sophia Feeney getting to hit a 3 from the top of the key, and just to watch the excitement for everybody else who watches how hard they play in practice against the starters all the time, and to see them get the moments in front of a nice crowd on a Saturday.
I wish that every game could be like that. I truly do. And rewarding those kids that don't see the glamour, all of the opportunities to come and talk to you, to make the paper, be a headline, be on Insta, all those things. To see those players get those quality type minutes and get in and do their thing. And I will tell you, our scout team, our scout practices, those players, like you said, like 9 through 18, they are performing at such a high level in practice. We talk about it after every practice. I mean, there was a day when we were getting ready for Milliken, and Taylor Tarver was on the scout team. She was Knudsen. She looked just like her. She made all the long distance threes, some of the fades, it had the correct spin move, all of it. So to watch those kids get those minutes, really gratifying.
And that's a hard person to try to emulate in a scout team practice too.
Taylor Tarver, she's got it.
Love that. And one of the other things, like we saw against the Augustana game, right? Shot 7 for 30 from outside, 23%. So when the 3 ball's not falling for a lot of players necessarily, still found a lot of different ways to score. One of those things, we're going to knock on all the wood we can find in here, is the massive turnaround in free throw shooting over the second half of the season right now. We're going to move on from this right now before we jinx anything.
Yeah,
Love
I don't
that.
know.
Yes, Tyler can cut
Dangerous
this.
territory here.
He can cut this later if we think we're going to jinx anything for sure. But looking ahead, to what's quickly now the last couple weeks of CCW play, thanks to Carroll beating Milliken the other night, it's now Titans are 9-2, Carroll's 8-2, Milliken 8-3. Still a very tight battle at the top, but all 3 of those teams are done with each other. And then you've got Augustana and North Central hanging around right there at 6-5, and North Central has given several of the top teams really tough battles this year, ourselves included.
Yeah, the addition of Ellie Sutter on their team after her soccer season was over is like the addition of Sawyer White to our team. So North Central definitely making some noise, and it's good that you mentioned that because there is a little bit of separation in terms of the record. But I think that all of the teams in the CCIW are that one kind of like dark horse that could sneak up and get you whenever you're not paying too much attention. So we've really got to be on point whenever we hit these last few stretches.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good luck with everything. Great to see the PinkZone crowd as always, and a special shout out, of course, to Minnie McCluskey for planning all that. By the way, I do think this is the first time that coming in to talk to me has ever been referred to as glamorous. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
We're gonna keep going with that. That's a really good one. Thank you, Tommy.
I like it. Thanks for joining us, Maya. We'll be back momentarily with Henry Moore and Lauren Feddersen.
Why is Illinois Wesleyan the #1 school in Illinois for jobs? Maybe it's because we're the AND University. That's right, A-N-D. And. Here you can explore the arts and study in a pre-professional program, double major, and play a sport. Do an internship and study abroad. Your opportunities are endless. Tap or click now to explore Illinois Wesleyan and start your free application today.
Welcome back inside the Ames Podcast Studio, our third and final interview of the day. We want to welcome in 2 Titans senior swimmers, Lauren Feddersen and Henry Moore. Thanks for joining us. How are we doing today?
Pretty good.
Feeling great.
Good, excellent. So glad to have you with us. Our first swimming and diving interview since before the break. So as you know, oftentimes we'll sit in here with the different teams and coaches and athletes and recap kind of the games of the last week, preview what's coming up. Of course, as you know, with swimming, much more of a training sport, train through the in-season meets and get ready for the end of the season. So what I wanted to first kind of talk to you guys about is, not just one of the most important training weeks of the year, but one of the most, different weeks of the year, which is, of course, the Florida trip, heading down to Venice, Florida this year, practicing in Northport. for 8 days between New Year's Eve and then the day before second semester started. And if you want to kind of share with the viewers and the listeners out there part of the purpose of that trip, and then just some of the fun stories and things that always come up.
Yeah, I mean, part of the purpose of that trip is to get heavy training in, but it's also a lot about team bonding and just having a good time while on break, but still getting 5 hours of exercise in a day.
Yeah. I think it's like the coaches say, it's a lot of training, but like you got to live in the moment. It's you're going to try your absolute hardest during your morning practice, and then you're not napping during the day because you're having fun. You don't know when your roommate's going to end up with a frozen TV dinner that's like 2,000 grams of sodium, and everyone says he shouldn't be eating it. And then you go for your second practice. You're tired. You're not really sweaty. You're chlorinated.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're smelly from your shower, and then you go for some ice cream. Bob's ice cream, always a favorite.
So much ice cream.
So we may need to get a sponsorship deal at some point and hear from Bob's Twist and Shake down in Venice, Florida. For those of you who find yourself down there, there are things that I can vouch for from the 4 years of doing that as an athlete versus the 10 years as a coach. Like, there's some of the places that you go to eat that you're like, if you're not doing 2 practices a day, this is not good. You don't want to eat this. This tastes terrible. Bob's is not that. That is some very high quality ice cream. So a frequent staple of those trips for sure. Mm-hmm. But one of my other favorites, of course, the Goodwill dinner.
Yes.
Over at Gold Rush Barbecue. Thank you, out on the island in Venice. And any particular moments or funny moments, memories jump out to you from this week down there?
Oh, from this year?
You can go further back in the past if you want.
I was like past years when, Henry and Shannon showed up with dog heads and bras and booty shorts on.
That was a look.
Yeah, that happens. That definitely happens.
It did happen.
Those photos will haunt me for the rest of my days. I don't know. I liked this year. Yeah. I was Ken and Lane was my Barbie. We gave Tommy and Coach hats. Always wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, gosh, that might not have made it into my luggage coming home. I don't know. It's possible that it didn't.
Well, my coat definitely didn't. I was all allergic.
The one you're allergic to?
Yeah, that was bad. That was really bad.
What was the allergic reaction situation here?
Oh, the coat I wore to be Ken,
the leopard print
I was
coat.
Allergic to it. And so I started breaking out during the dinner. And everyone's like, you don't look so good. I'm like, I'm okay, as my voice is breaking out.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember that.
His eyes were puffy, just sneezing continuously, and we're like, take off the coat.
Yeah. Okay. This is ringing a bell now.
Yeah.
So coming out of that Florida trip, then of course it's kind of a series of 5 dual meets throughout the 3 weeks in January, and now finally getting to the point where we're starting to rest a little bit, going into the conference meet, still at the very early phase, the taper portion of the season. But of course, culminated with senior day on Saturday. Got to recognize the 2 of you along with your 9 classmates before the meet. As you kind of fill out those bios and you sit here and you look back at your 4 years or 5 years in this case wearing Titan green, any favorite moments in or out of the water really kind of stand out to you as you were sitting there thinking about your past 4 or 5 years?
I mean, like, my mind always goes back to just like different races I've had at conference and like the energy of the races. Like my freshman year, the 800 free relay that we had, I've never been at a meet where it's been so loud during a race. It was just the energy that was happening at that time and like being able to swim with the 3 other people on the relay and seeing Ellen just get so far ahead on that last 25, and it just be like to the point where like your eardrums are shaking. It was so much energy in that pool.
Yeah, I feel like my favorite moments have to do with like just being with my teammates. Like, I remember another Florida memory is me and Lane, and we're just making grunting noises, and Mason can't understand us. Or any of the times where we go for our travel meets at Carthage or conference. Those are always super fun rooms, and I don't know. I just love the team. The team is what really makes swimming like everything just come together for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a little bit of an interesting, unique situation there where Lane Wagner was a transfer here. Sophomore year has been, a long time best friend growing up as well. So you have that additional benefit of having some of those long time pre-existing relationships too coming in. Mm-hmm. Were you going to add something there? I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say, like different memories of Florida. Like I really were you in the room last year with Shannon and Lane? And
no, that was Jay.
Oh, someone. They FaceTimed the entire group chat that we have, and we're just grittying back and forth across the screen of this group chat.
Gosh,
I love that so much.
Should I move on there without dignifying that one with further
probably.
comment? Or okay, sounds good. That's great. So if you can, think back to so many times we're sitting here with the freshmen or sophomores talking about why Illinois Wesleyan, how did you end up here to begin with, and it was slightly different journeys for both of you. And I think it's always interesting to talk about as you kind of finish your careers and think back on that. Lauren, we're almost at the 7-year anniversary of your first visit to Wesleyan as someone who was finishing her sophomore year of high school at the time, and then kind of went round and round senior year on a lot of different options. But ultimately, if you had to bring it down to the end point of that decision process and what kind of finally drew you here, how did we end up here?
I was down between two schools, Illinois Wesleyan and another school, and the other school I wasn't going to be able to swim at. And my senior year of high school, my YMCA state, I did not swim well while there. And I decided while there that I was not ready to be done with my swim career because it was not a good way to end. I did not have a good time. So I, at that point, made the decision I wanted to continue swimming above just the college club level. And yes, that then made it very easy for me to choose Illinois Wesleyan.
And of course, a couple years ago, you decided 4 years wasn't going to be enough either in college, and let's do one more.
Yep.
The I love swimming philosophy.
It is.
Yeah.
And what about you, Henry?
I didn't. I knew pretty early in the process that I was going to go to Wesleyan just because it was a really big. It had all the points that I wanted. It had good. I knew that it had a good bio program because I wanted to do medicine. I knew a lot of people that had graduated from here that had gone into medicine. So it'd been perfect. And then I wanted to swim. I wanted to continue my swim career. So it kind of just matched up in all the avenues for me.
Yeah, and now sitting here on the other end of that, as we're a couple months away from walking across the stage at graduation. I know. No tears today. As you look ahead at the next several years of your life, where are we planning to go?
I'm looking at grad school, something with either a master's in bio or genetics. I'm currently in the application process, probably finishing up my last 2 applications tonight, so yay. And just waiting for a response to find out where I'll be going.
Henry, you tried to drop a little bit of surprise on us with an alleged decision on senior day Saturday, but I know we're still in the process there as well for you.
Yeah, no, I'm just waiting. I applied to a lot of schools, and I've already got one acceptance from Howard, but I'm kind of just waiting to see where my options where will be best for both me, my family, and the people that I care about. So,
have you looked? Is there anything in particular that you think you might want to specialize in at this point, or is that still a work in progress?
It's been my dream to be an orthopedic surgeon my entire life. So,
yeah, and we want to wish you both, on behalf of myself and Tyler and the show, the best over the next few weeks as we get ready for conference. Good luck with everything up the CCIW meet and in the future, of course. Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
Thank you.